And my mom said to him, John, why did you become a Catholic? And he said, I didn't know. He said, I would have become Jewish if I'd known more Jews. So she said, well, that's a strange answer, but I think she liked to sort of think that that was proof. He was amazing. Did you pick good pictures of him?
No, I mean, we had practically none, whatever I had.
I think so.
I don't think I had any.
No, you haven't. I've asked, but
I think I had one or two. I thought I gave. They were not. I got them from my dad. I'll double check again, but I don't think we have
I
any.
can look in the attic. You have like boxes still?
No, I'll go through, but we went through it all.
When did Thompson first meet Milton?
I think it would have been about 1937 or 38.
Right, in Boston.
And I think it was, I mean, he was the first Jewish family who he really, really knew.
Boston, I guess, is not the place where, if he'd been in New York, it would have been.
If you don't come from New York, you just probably don't know the Jews. We had an Australian daughter, you know, an exchange student living with us. She was 16 or 17. She had never met a Jewish person
In her life?
in her life until she was living with us.
Where was she from? Not Sydney.
Brisbane.
No, from Brisbane.
And I remember when John went to West Side Story, and he got me tickets. He said, you have to, when was it? When it first opened. And it was not easy to get tickets. And he really wanted people to hear and see West Side Story. And he got me a ticket for matinee. I remember going into the city.
Did he know Leonard Bernstein?
I'm sure, I don't know. I would assume I don't know. Do you think he knew Leonard? Who knows?
Well, you could call Jamie Bernstein Thomas.
Mm-hmm. His daughter.
Bernstein's daughter. I think she was running actually a catering operation.
I
What was
mean,
she
she
running?
still
A
is. She's a
catering
caterer.
operation. She was a caterer. We went to in New York for a while, supporters of the New York Festival of Song, and Bernstein was on their board, and once a year they had something fundraiser at the Bernstein apartment, and she catered it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
that was
nepotism.
It was quite nice.
It was
Sweet.
very
His
nice.
piano was there.
Yeah, but
all
the
his
the
furniture.
apartment was totally unchanged, which made it quite something.
I mean, there is a Bernstein link because John Thompson features a poem as I wrote, Age of Anxiety, and Leonard Bernstein set the poem to music.
And he, of course, was in Boston. I don't know what year he was in Boston. When he went to college, he was... Oh, yes, I remember there was a woman at one of those fundraisers at Bernstein's apartment who said something about having taken piano lessons with him in Boston when he was a student.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he was in Boston. It might have been around that same time, in the 30s. Maybe not. I don't know. Say he was younger.
But I mean, he was so thrilled about West Side Story. I mean, to go out and get a ticket for 6, however old I was. It would seem that they would run in the same circles.
John was your godfather.
Yeah.
And for you?
He was just.
He was such a good friend of the family.
He was like. He was certainly of the family. He came to every family event, and when he died, remember how Dad came down the stairs and was with this accident?
Yeah,
And he talked about fire and water, and we didn't even want to tell him because we thought he might have a heart attack. And we were so close, and my mom too.
Now, didn't Dad had his accident just before? And we didn't tell him because he was in the hospital. Dad was in the hospital.
And
we didn't tell him.
We didn't tell him until he
was
came
in the hospital.
home.
We didn't tell him.
No, and when he came home, we were still afraid to tell him because it was
Going to be such a shock.
such a shock, and it was such a shock, obviously.
Yeah.
Someplace I have some letters.
So, are you the middle sister?
No, I'm the little one.
You're the little one, right.
Always will be.
Right, okay.
Mary's the
Right.
first is this one.
And you've talked to all of the German boys that John adopted who are still alive?
Well, it's not that easy. There's one who's still alive, and I identified 3.
And you've only been able to track down 2?
Mariodette. Well, 3 I've tracked down
Mm-hmm.
in terms of Mariette Littman is the widow of Sebastian,
Right, yeah.
and she's been enormously helpful. There's
Do you want some more?
an incredible correspondence
Yeah.
that they were writing virtually every day to each other. Because you knew Sebastian.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because he came to New York then.
Yeah, we knew Sebastian. We know, kept up good ties with Maria Dad and her kids.
And I'm going to visit the sister of another one, Matthias Leber, who committed suicide. He was the son of the only socialist involved in the Hitler bomb plot, and he had a traumatic time. And John Thompson felt he should never have gone back to Germany, which he did. He became very disturbed. So 3 I know, but you definitely think they're 5, or you?
I thought there were more than 3.
Right.
Maria Odette, or one of them, we could just tell you, maybe I'm wrong.
But do you remember, I mean, what did she say, Maria Odette?
I can't remember mention. But still, I mean, they were a responsibility of his, and he supported their education, provided them with books.
But some of them you just couldn't trace. They were in Germany and they just vanished.
Well, there could have been. I mean, there could be that there was, we just moved away from him and so on, and he helped them, and it didn't, and the relationship didn't last. With Sebastian, it was a very, very close relationship, and he was in formal terms his guardian, but Sebastian regarded John as his father.
But if somebody's a U.S. citizen and you could get their social security or something, it's fairly easy to trace somebody. I would assume in Germany they're even probably more bureaucratic. You know what I'm saying?
You probably need a name.
No.
The name helps.
No. I mean, if you don't know the name, I mean, you can't do it. But I'm saying once you have the name, it's fairly easy. I mean,
did you ask Fred Sander? I know that he was very friendly. He's still friendly with
Maria Dad?
Yes.
No.
But he was very friendly with Sebastian.
Well, I mean, Sebastian and Matthias, I mean, they even studied medicine together.
Right.
Jointly, they were both at Edinburgh. So it was a very, very close thing. And there's no other boy mentioned in the letter.
What's the guy's name in Edinburgh who was with the Arts Festival?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Ricky DeMarco.
Right,
Ricky I'm in touch with him.
Ricky DeMarco.
Yeah, he's going strong.
Oh, I have to get in touch with him.
Really?
Yeah.
You knew him?
I went to Edinburgh. I went to Glasgow to do a concert, and I went to Edinburgh, and I looked him up, and he was sort of snooty at first, and I said, my mom told me to come to visit you, and I always heard John Thompson talk about you. And the minute I said that,
you were a friend.
He took me out to dinner with his entourage. And I liked him. He was a kid. He's a kid.
Yeah. So, you just grew up with John, coming always on Sundays. Presumably it was Sunday.
Yeah, on Sunday.
And your parents had an open house, or was like?
It wasn't an open house.
No, he'd always come over.
He would
have lunch or dinner.
And he always held us as captive audiences, and that was pretty hard to do in our family. Everybody's jazzed, but in his soft, wonderful way of speaking, and he was there all the time. I mean, you'd see him on a Thursday, you'd see him on a Friday, you'd see him on whenever.
Really?
Yeah, he came all the time. It was like his home.
You had to say that with him?
Yes, that's where I think I might have some pictures.
And he never invited my parents to his apartment.
Never.
Because that was another secret side of his life.
That's right. We never, ever.
It's interesting. Barbara and I were in his apartment once when he lived on King Street.
No, we lived downtown.
We lived downtown. It came about in a funny way. He was talking about something. He ended up talking about the difference between poetry and prose. And I don't know what I said, but he said, "Oh, you'll have to come over so I can help you see the difference between poetry and prose." So we arrived, and I think he'd already forgotten the reason for this visit. And we were just talking about this or that. That was when he told us that amusing story about the spaghetti dip.
Oh, yes.
And then at one point I reminded him of this. He said, "Oh." And so we took out the Encyclopedia Britannica, which he'd had that wonderful early edition that everyone values. It was the 11th or something like that. And he read the definition of poetry in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And then he read a poem. He said, "See the difference?"
Well, what was was his apartment like?
Well, it was.
I remember. I think it was very plain.
It was
with lots
plain,
of bookcases.
small. It was a post-war building in the village. We were only in the living room, I guess, as you walked in.
Maybe the kitchen was right.
The kitchen was off the sort of little entry, and then there was more to the apartment.
Yeah,
the bedroom, but we didn't see the rest of it. But it was a typical. But inside, what there were a lot of books, and I think that he had some sculpture and paintings.
Don't remember.
What happened to all his books?
Oh yeah, the books. Many of the books are at the Bronx Psychiatric Hospital. And where they have to drum Thompson up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something that happened. He was an obstetrician, I think, at Einstein. He had somehow originally gotten hold of all of John's books, and I think it was Milton found out about this, and arranged somehow to retrieve the books. I don't know if he retrieved all of them, to be honest with you, but there were a huge number, and that's when he put them in the 9th floor. Remember the old 9th floor conference room?
Sure.
And he had glass cases for his library, which is what he liked.
That would be an interesting guy to look up.
I know. I'm not sure I've got. The name is pronounced something as the way I said it. I don't know how to spell
Say it again?
Something like Arbitol or Abitol.
Of Einstein or whatever.
Right.
I went to John's apartment in Riverdale after his death, and the one thing that sticks in my mind was a nice apartment, nice view, very high up. But that it was, and this goes back to your hidden different sides. It was sort of, I was going to say glitzy, and then he had 12 or 18 pairs of sunglasses.
Oh my God.
It's like this was a side of him. He would sometimes come in his little sports car and look dapper, but this was like, you wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's
Apparently he liked going to the opera with Auden, and they dressed to the nines.
he had a cape. I remember his cape.
And now, of course, unfortunately, I don't know the name of the young man who was John's patient when John died down in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could only get that if you had his address book or something like that.
Frank has mentioned the name.
Oh, you have the name.
Yeah, in the course of the conversation. Because Frank, how was it? You went out to the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, and Frank went down to the funeral also.
And so it was just both of you
at
the funeral.
Did you ever find out what happened with those attorneys that had all these patient files and things? The ones that you tried to find them in the phone book and they were no longer. Maybe when they
firm, but even if a firm disintegrates, you might know the names. You could trace the names.
Because the only reason I knew about that was the letter that I showed you, where Milton had gotten a letter from someone, a former patient of John's, who wanted to be able to have was applying for a fellowship at him or something like that. She was actually a Catholic nun. And Milton had thought that I had his records, but I didn't. And then I called Frank, and Frank said this particular attorney. I only met Frank once. It was in connection with this memorial service, and he gave me attorney. That's all I know. But I only thought of that because you mentioned the name of this.
He said there were a lot of legal problems afterwards with patients. Well, just the problems of people wanting information and wanting their files.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that there was any.
Right.
No, just sorting everything out. Plain.
Well, but that would be another. There's just so many avenues. But if you had if you knew the names of many of the patients,
it would be wonderful.
But unless you have, a calendar or something.
Is that even legal?
Sure.
With patient records, I think one would have to, if one then asked the patient, would they be willing to let themselves be identified
as a
patient
the privilege resides in the patient, not in the doctor.
So that it would be a question of asking, but otherwise I would be obliged not to identify or to anonymize.
But that would be very interesting to get an insider view from someone who was a patient. John,
Can you remember sort of ordinary conversations with John about Father Pierre, and there was a lot in his conversation about saving children, and I didn't know so much about his kids. When did we find out that he had kids, Sebastian?
I don't know when. He told us.
But at some point.
At some point, yeah. I think it was fairly early on that he had adopted some German kids.
But he really enjoyed being with Mary.
Did he play games or did he just?
No,
No. He
was
talked.
He talked.
But he was interested in what you were doing.
He was very into.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you said that about the sunglasses.
Yeah, I was struck by it. It was like there was a side of John which was, you call it dandy. The contrast between that behavior and going to a retreat. I guess it's almost a silent retreat. I don't know if you talked to anyone about that.
No, I need to do that. There's a Canadian retreat, which I mentioned, Quebec, in Gaspé.
Of course, if it was a silent retreat, I don't know how much information you'll have.
Yeah.